Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the virtualized workshop. So, most of us have been in this IT field for quite some time and would have experienced this situation where it's late night and you are still sitting in the war room surrounded by your engineers and colleagues who are trying to root cause an issue that has impacted your SaaS application a few hours back. Many of your customers have been impacted and the issue has been escalated to the upper management. You are the head of operations team, and the thought that crosses your mind is when such issues occur, how can I minimize the impact by enabling my operations team to identify the culprit resource as soon as possible so that they can recover the issue and the failure quickly, thus helping to reduce the MTTR. My friends, we have gathered here to understand how we can enable the operations team with the machine learning powered services like DevOps Guru that generates this intelligent recommendations with prescribed guidance to address these issues. My name is Nikunj Vaidya, and I work in AWS as a senior solutions architect, DevOps specialist, mainly focusing on the AI/ML developer services that includes Code Guru and DevOps Guru. So today we will delve into deep into DevOps Guru, which is a service, by going through a few slides, and then later on we will go through a hands-on workshop with DevOps Guru. I hope all of you have identified the AWS account in which you would run this workshop. We have also published a set of prerequisites, and hopefully you have completed it. If not, it's okay. I will still walk you through. I will still walk you through it during the workshop, but it may need you to wait for 2 hours before completing the later portion of the workshop. So for that, you can observe what are the steps that are being carried out. But if you would have already done a prerequisite, you can just directly join in and carry out the later portion of the workshop and see the results. So anyways, once we are into the workshop, I'll explain that a little bit more. But with that, let us begin with our presentation. So I will cover quickly a few slides of PowerPoint presentation for DevOps Guru, just to explain the conceptual part of DevOps Guru, and then we'll quickly jump onto the workshop. So in this particular slide, we have a broad selection of services that AWS offers as tools to the developers. This slide looks pretty busy. And in fact, actually, we have not been able to include many other services. What I want to highlight out here is mainly the categories of services. As you can see, we have a CI/CD category, infrastructure as code. We have IDE, DevOps and toolkits, SDKs, and we have CLI scripting tools, languages, monitoring and tracing. And what I want to highlight is this particular section, which is recently introduced into our portfolio, which is AI/ML intersection with DevOps. This mainly includes two services, Amazon Code Guru and DevOps Guru. For this particular virtualized workshop, we'll be focusing on DevOps Guru. So let us move on to the next slide, which is IT operations today. So this is a slide which depicts typical traditional monitoring. Today, our applications are becoming increasingly distributed and complex. We require additional dashboards, metrics, and alarms to monitor these resources. So maintaining and improving the application availability and resolving the operational issues faster has become even more difficult and challenging. These are a few lists of number of key challenges that are faced by the operators. If you think from the operations perspective, if I'm an operator and I'm kind of managing a particular set of infrastructure, think of it when there are issues that occurs and the operator has to go through a good amount of logs, debugs, messages, and try to figure out what is happening. Think of it, the complexity that the operator has to deal with. Data is spread across various resources, thus tracking of the data to correct resource or the issue could be challenging. In fact, every time a new service or a resource is added, new alarms, metrics, especially the thresholds to be set, when to kick off an alarm, all of those things has to be a manual process. But the main point I want to highlight out here in this particular slide is when an issue occurs, the operator had to deal with investigating a high number of alerts that are generated, and potentially a lot of services would be complaining. And after that, stitching together a string of events and correlate all of these failures to a potential trigger. And this is the potential trigger that would have potentially caused this particular issue. From the operator's point of view, think of it the variety of metrics, logs, events, traces they have to track across all the applications and resources. And not to forget the overwhelming number of alarms to enable just to ensure that I have a full coverage of monitoring all the services. This is where DevOps Guru steps in and comes for rescue. DevOps Guru service was launched during reInvent 2020 and is our approach to the next gen ops, where we are applying machine learning to the operational data for your applications and workload. In a nutshell, the purpose of this service is to improve application and services availability. Thus, when an issue occurs, DevOps Guru provides an intelligent digest of various events and anomalies such that the operator can reach to the root cause pretty quickly. And that is the main goal of DevOps Guru, to improve your application and services availability by reducing the MTTR. MTTR is basically mean time between repair. So we want to minimize the duration of the faults, even if it occurs, as much as possible, so that your customers who are using your services are least impacted. Now, if we think from DevOps Guru perspective, you can enable DevOps Guru by simply clicking an enable button, and we will see that in the workshop, how easy and simple it is. After which it starts monitoring your resources in that particular region of that account. Once enabled, you would see this simple dashboard as shown in the screenshot below. You may have noticed we don't have any graphs, gauges, or even running counters on this dashboard to monitor the system health. And the reason is because we want to offload the operators from monitoring. DevOps Guru monitors the system health on your behalf, and it will alert you only when it detects an anomaly. Secondly, it does not require the operators to manually configure tons of alarms and various thresholds across the resources. As you would imagine, just configuring a particular threshold for a particular resource is itself a challenge in itself. And the reason is because it's very subjective. It depends on the situation. It depends upon the scenario of that particular resource. For example, if today it is a DOS attack, a particular threshold, but maybe your site became very popular and now it's no longer a DOS attack. It's expected that you will get a very high rate of traffic to your site. And what you want is offload the operator from going in different situations and manually changing those thresholds for the alarms. Interestingly, DevOps Guru uses pre-trained machine learning models behind the scenes where the thresholds are implicitly set to detect the anomalies. And it dynamically learns the resource's behavior and adjusts the threshold accordingly. So now when an issue occurs, unlike the traditional systems where the operator has to deal with tons of alarms that are generated, not knowing which ones are the symptoms and which one is actually the cause, DevOps Guru stitches together a systematic correlated sequence of events and presents it in the form of an insight. Your question is, what is an insight? So insight is actually the heart of DevOps Guru, where it provides prescribed guidance and recommendations on how to resolve the issue. And we'll see that during our demo also. So if we take our example of that we began with, where our SaaS application was impacted, we could be potentially running into a significant memory growth from one of the containerized applications running on ECS. That could be one scenario, or maybe, excuse me, the read capacity of your backend database is being overrun. The reason I'm giving both of these examples is because these issues are detected by the metrics. And DevOps Guru detects such anomaly uh, using those vended CloudWatch metrics, and it will correlate to any operational event you could have carried out pretty much during that time frame. Thus, potentially, it could be potentially a configuration change, or any kind of an operation that you would have conducted that it believes that could be a trigger. It will try to correlate with it and provide you with the prescribed recommendations on how to fix the issue. This is very helpful for the operator to quickly mitigate the issue and reduce the mean time between repair. So we'll see that even in our demo and kind of understand. Um, But now that I kind of was explaining what is DevOps Guru and what does DevOps Guru offer, let us try to understand how does DevOps Guru works, and what happens behind the scenes. So this is a picture that I wanted to kind of diagrammatically represent how DevOps Guru works behind the scenes. So once you enable DevOps Guru, what happens is it starts ingesting the operational data from the vended CloudWatch metrics of all the resources in your region, or the selected resources in your region in that particular account. And it uses machine learning detectors to detect any anomalies. So here you can see, as in this picture, the serverless infrastructure is being monitored, which is a part of CloudFormation stack. Once the anomaly is detected, it will look up the cloud trail logs and collect the events that are relevant to those anomalies. And then it will try to correlate them and construct the recommendation with prescribed guidance. So it will package all of this information and present it in the form of a single insight. So that way, from an operator's perspective, operator has one single insight to look at when there is a failure, and in that there is a correlated sequence of events that have been stitched together and a story provided to an operator that will enable the operator to reach to the root cause quickly. This is how DevOps Guru is positioned to enable the operators to identify the culprit resource as soon as possible, so that they can take corrective actions to recover and reduce the MTTR. So this is a high-level overview of how DevOps Guru works behind the scenes. And uh, as I was highlighting all of these points in the earlier slides, I just want to highlight a few points back again. First is it is very easy to use, and we will see that even in the workshop. You can enable DevOps Guru either by a single click of enable button, or you could use CloudFormation stacks with which you will be able to uh, deploy or enable DevOps Guru in maybe multiple regions, multiple accounts in a single shot. Um, it uses pre-trained machine learning models behind the scenes, so it does not expect the operator or the user to know about machine learning. It uses it and provides you the output that will facilitate you to identify the root cause quickly. The second point is auto detect operational issues. As soon as a new resource is being created in your account, uh, it will always come up with a vended CloudWatch metrics, and it will and if DevOps Guru is enabled for that particular region, automatically that resource is registered with DevOps Guru. So DevOps Guru automatically starts monitoring it. You don't have to even click a single button. Once new resources or new CloudFormation stack is spawned out, all of those resources are now monitored with DevOps Guru. And wherever it detects any operational issues, it will flag it and provide you an insight. Third, quick resolution, we already went through it, that uses the machine learning powered um, um, recommendations that are generated in the form of an insight that will guide the operator with more meaningful guidance, I would say. That will help the operator to not just get all the error messages together and trying to figure out which one is the more severe and what could be the potential trigger. but it really provides a very prescribed guidance to the operator to reach to the root cause. Scalable, as I mentioned, new workload, if it is added, it will automatically start monitoring those. If you have removed some of the resources, it will stop monitoring those resources. And of course, the one of the biggest point is it reduces the noise. And from the operator's perspective, think of it, we get 30, 40 alarms together from various different resources. When a failure occurs, you don't know where to start from. Um, and in such situation, it's very useful to have more prescribed guidance on what could be the potential issue. You may want to start with this and give more prescribed recommendations on how to recover and address the root cause. And we'll see that even in our demonstration. This is one diagram that I just wanted to share more from the perspective of how you could enable DevOps Guru across multiple accounts. As you would know, DevOps Guru can be enabled using CloudFormation stacks, and CloudFormation supports something called as stack sets. Using stack sets, you can run the CloudFormation stacks across multiple accounts, um, and you could just trigger it from one account, but you can just give multiple account numbers, and it goes into those various accounts as well as various regions of those accounts, and it deploys those CloudFormation templates there. So you can enable DevOps Guru using those stack sets of CloudFormation. In this diagram, CFN indicates CloudFormation. It's just a acronym that I'm using it. And as you can see, it is triggered from account A, but it is triggering it into the multiple accounts. And then as soon as it is enabled, that enables DevOps Guru. And what DevOps Guru is doing is, as soon as it is enabled, it has started monitoring those CloudFormation stacks that are already existing. So as you can see in account A, there is stack A, stack B, stack C. There are a lot of resources that are spawned using those stacks. All of those resources are now being monitored by DevOps Guru. What DevOps Guru does is it uses the CloudFormation stack as an application boundary. So any anomalies or multiple anomalies that are happening within that particular application boundary, it will try to correlate and will provide you with a more meaningful recommendations. You could enable DevOps Guru to just monitor all resources and not a specific CloudFormation stack. Or you can say, I want to monitor all CloudFormation stacks. With that, the advantage is if there are CloudFormation stacks, it will help you to it will help DevOps Guru to provide an application boundary where it will be able to better correlate the events. And CloudFormation stacks also enables DevOps Guru to understand how these services are connected to each other. So it will provide you with much more meaningful recommendations on that. One other part is once the insight is generated, say for example, it detects an anomaly and now an insight is generated. Now that insight is generated on DevOps Guru dashboard. So you can go to the DevOps Guru dashboard and you can see it, but it is per region. So if there is an anomaly in region A, you would see in DevOps Guru dashboard A, in DevOps Guru dashboard region B. So if you would want it to collect it into a central account and have a centralized view of what are the various different insights that are being generated in my organization. As I was mentioning earlier, CloudFormation stack set, we will support even the organization. So if you have multiple accounts or multiple organizational units into which you want to spawn CloudFormation templates for DevOps Guru, you can still do it. Now, in coming back to this particular this particular slide, you can have a central account where you want to monitor or basically collect all the insights from various different accounts. It could be all of your accounts within your organization. And this central account can have an SNS topic, which can be a target for all of these DevOps Guru that are running in different regions, and they can point to the SNS notification to this common topic where you could have either email subscribers or you could have what we call it as incident management tools that would have subscribed to it. So PagerDuty, we support PagerDuty, as well as Atlassian's Ops Genie. So if they are the devices to which you are using your incident management tool, you can directly insert the insights into those tools. Apart from that, we natively support AWS Systems Manager, where it offers a functionality called Ops Center, in which for any insight that is generated, an ops item is created. As you would know, Ops Center is kind of a ticketing system, and it will create a ticket for ops item, and that will have all the details of the insight in that ticket. And ideally, what happens is in DevOps Guru dashboard is when an issue occurs, the issue shows up as an ongoing insight on the dashboard. But when the issue is resolved, it will disappear, and the DevOps and the whole dashboard will show everything as zeros. Um, However, if you have opened the ticket, this ticket, you can keep it open in your incident management tools. And if you want to follow up on some action items or root cause analysis or any corrective action that needs to be taken as a preventative action, or however it is geared towards, you can continue to use that. And you can independently close the ticket uh, uh, depending on your action items being followed. So that way, we have native integration within our systems manager as well as in our partners ecosystem like PagerDuty and OpsStream. All right. So with that, now we will jump into the workshop. So as by now, I think you would have understood from DevOps Guru perspective, you can think of it as DevOps Guru is a big analytics engine where it is getting one feed from the CloudWatch vendor metrics of all your resources, the operational data coming in, they are being ingested. They are being worked upon across the machine learning models, machine learning detectors. And when it detects an anomaly, there is an output generated, which is basically an insight. And that insight can be directed towards any of the incident management tools where it can be collected so that you can track that insight um, in your incident management lifecycle. So with that, now we will jump into the workshop and we will see how we can reproduce an insight, and we'll see how that insight will be flagged, and DevOps Guru will help us to reach to the root cause quickly. Okay, so now we have completed the PowerPoint presentation and we'll jump into the workshop. Um, if you have not gotten this particular link, this is the link that we are going to use for today's workshop. Basically AIOps using devops-guru.workshop.aws. And excuse me, when you navigate to this particular link, it will provide you with a quick overview of what is DevOps Guru. And it mainly tells you that this is what your workshop would look like. In this particular workshop, we will spin out a cloud formation stack, which will comprise of the serverless components, API gateway, AWS Lambda, and DynamoDB. Once we spin out these resources, we will also enable DevOps Guru. And once DevOps Guru is enabled, it will start monitoring all of your resources. And what we will do is we'll start injecting HTTP requests into our API gateway. And this will be a high rate of requests that will come in from the internet. We will use a custom script that we have already provided. So we'll go through this workshop and we'll show it to you. And that will kind of simulate a kind of a DOS attack that is coming in for the API gateway, Lambda, and DynamoDB. And we will, and DevOps Guru is monitoring all of these resources, and it will detect it as an anomaly, and it will provide you with a insight or a recommendation. This is basically based upon this particular blog that is written, which also guides you through these steps. But if you want to do it this workshop style, you can do it using this particular link. All right, so this particular workshop, we have tried to keep it as contained as possible in a particular CloudFormation stack. And we have tried to provide you a kind of an approximate cost that it will incur in case if you are planning to run it in your account. It's very minimal. It's basically just two API gateway endpoints, two Lambda functions, and one DynamoDB. Those will be the resources that will be monitored by DevOps Guru, and we have given an estimate of cost around here. And if you run it for, say, for example, 3 hours of duration, then it will cost you less than $1. One important point is in our earlier communication, we would have provided you a set of prerequisites, and those prerequisites are these step 1, step 2, and step 3. If you would have done all these 3 steps, then we are good to go, and then we can directly jump on to the 4th step. And the reason why we have gone through that approach is because what happens is when you go through these steps and you enable DevOps Guru, after DevOps Guru is enabled, it takes approximately 2 hours for it to do the baselining of the resources. What I mean by that is it understands and records the behavior of your resources that DevOps Guru is monitoring, at least for 2 hours, to understand and create a baseline that this is the normal behavior. You don't want to inject a failure during those 2 hours, because then it will potentially think it as this is a normal behavior, whereas that is not. In production environments, when you enable DevOps Guru, what it does is it looks at the CloudWatch metrics, and it looks at the history of the resource, and it understands the resource's behavior. So even in production, we usually recommend give it around 24 hours for it to do the baselining, and after that, it will really start detecting all the anomalies. And that's the reason why we wanted these step 1, 2, and 3 being completed as a prerequisite, so we don't have to wait for 2 hours just for doing the baselining. But you have already completed 1, 2, 3, then we directly jump into applying the trigger and really seeing the insights come up. However, just for the benefit of everyone, what I'll do is I'll quickly run through steps 1, 2, and 3 just to demonstrate what is needed for this. And of course, very important, as I was mentioning here, as the step suggests, make sure that you have gone through a cleanup session after this whole workshop is completed, so that you don't incur any charges further. All right, so that was a quick introduction of this workshop. Let us jump into this workshop. So here it says, first create a Cloud9 environment. So in this case, I have one of the environment that is created. I'm not going to use it. I will rather create a new environment, and I will say my Cloud9. You can just give it any name, and you can say next step. Now here in this case, what it is suggesting is it's saying DevOps Guru Workshop. You can give any name, selecting T3 small, and then create the environment. So we'll select T3 small, leave it as Amazon Linux 2, and then next step. Once this is selected, create the environment. So now that you have started this, it will go through this process of instantiating this Cloud9 environment. Also, what it does is, what it is doing out here is, just to give you a little bit of an idea, Cloud9 environment is basically a browser-based development environment. It is an IDE that is provided to our developers so that they can connect from anywhere in the cloud, and they will get access to the exact same development environment how they have left earlier. Rather than having the IDE locally installed on your laptop, Cloud9 offers a development environment on the cloud. So this is where it provides you with a directory structure to be present here. There are tabs for files to be open, and then there is a bash terminal here. This is what we as developers usually need it. So I'll just close both of these. These are just welcome messages. And if I go back, what it says is you want to do a little bit of configuration for this. So from the configuration perspective, what it's saying is you may need to go into say IAM role, go into IAM role, and you may have to create an IAM role with an admin permission. So if you go into roles, create a role, select EC2 instance as the principal, go to the next permissions, and you want to add administrator access policy. And once you give it, just give it a name as my workshop admin. Of course, you can give it any name you want, just remember it and just create a role. Now what happens is once you've created this role, go to EC2 service. And the reason I'm going to EC2 service is because this Cloud9 environment saw with the development environment, actually behind this, it has instantiated one EC2 instance. So here you would see an EC2 instance that has shown up. And you can see that my Cloud9 environment, this is what we gave it as a name. I already have a few Cloud9 environments here, but I'm not going to use it. So this one, which I just spawned, this is the EC2 instance that is running right now. And it is still in the process of initializing it. But once you select it, what you do is go into actions, security, and modify the IAM role. In this, you want to give it a role of the admin role that you just created. So this is the role that you created, and you select it and you click save. Once you've saved it, now your Cloud9 environment has the permissions for the admin access. So all the actions or all the commands that you will run will have those admin permissions, and that will be useful. One other part is just for ease of use, just click this cartwheel here, and it will open up this preferences, and you can scroll into AWS settings, and here under the credentials, there is AWS managed temporary credentials. This is not needed, so I would say disable this. And once disabled, it will remember. You don't have to click save, and you can just click close the preferences. All of this is explained here, but I just wanted to kind of run it by you and do this. So here, AWS managed temporary credentials is disabled. So we are here. If you want, you can run this to remove any temporary credentials that is already configured. So you can just click this button and it will copy it and paste it here. All right. So now you want to install a few dependencies. So we just go through that. We will also configure the account ID and AWS region. So we will run this command. Okay, so it is run. This is okay. And you want to configure the region here. So you can copy this command and run it. So AWS configure region is configured as US West 2. I'm using US West 2 for my first part. And of course, if you want to test it out, you can just check out. If you run this command, what you can do is you can grep for, say, for example, now it says IAM role is valid. So this is what we want to just ensure that everything is configured correctly, and then we can move ahead. Here, this is just a quick test of AWS CLI and the region. It is all configured, and we are fine. So here, I would say all of these are automatically updated. You don't need to run this. I would say just directly run sudo pip3 install requests so that we will get the Python installed. Python requests library installed, and we will use this library to generate HTTP requests. All right. So now with this, we have completed the first part of it, and now we are into the second part. What we want to do is we want to do a git clone of a particular sample repository and cd to it. So here, what we can do is just copy paste that command. As you can see, I have gotten a new directory here, Amazon DevOps Guru samples, and I'm already logged in into generate DevOps Guru insights directory. So what I will do is I'll expand this, and this is the directory that we are going to follow up on. Generate DevOps Guru insights. If you want, you can open up the CFN shops monitor offer code. This is the CloudFormation template that we are going to run. So I think it's good to have it open just for a reference purpose so that you know what you are running. All right, so once you have done this, go to the next step. And what it's saying is run this CloudFormation stack. So you are already into that directory, and it is referring to this YAML file, which we just opened. So we will go here and run the command. All right, so CloudFormation stack has now started. If you have a CloudFormation stack, open up the tab for the CloudFormation stack, CloudFormation console, and you will see my serverless stack is creating progress. This takes less than 5 minutes for it to run, and it will spawn out the serverless infrastructure, which comprises of API gateway, Lambda, and DynamoDB. So we'll wait it out for a few minutes. But in the meantime, what I want to show you is here is in our workshop, it provides you with a few tips and notes. And once the CloudFormation stack is completed, what it's saying is go into the Outputs tab, where it will provide you with two APIs. And these are the APIs with which we will be able to communicate with DynamoDB. These are the two APIs published by API Gateway, and we'll try to access those, and we will be able to communicate with DynamoDB. We'll wait for the CloudFormation stack. It's still in progress. Okay, so the stack is completed now. Stack is fully functional, and if we go into it, we will see there are various resources that are spawned for this, and we wanted to watch out for the output. So here you can see that we have excuse me, two APIs. One is the create REST API, and second is the list REST API. So if we click on this list REST API and we open it up, it shows me a blank screen as of today, because there is nothing populated in DynamoDB table. So our next steps would be that populate the DynamoDB table. So when we go to this next step, what we will do is we'll just copy paste this command. What this command does is what this command does is, I'll run this command. It will fetch the name of the DynamoDB table that you just created. Then it will replace a generic DynamoDB table name with the name of your DynamoDB table in this particular JSON file. And after that, what you're doing is you are using that JSON file as an input to write the items onto DynamoDB table. So now you have populated your DynamoDB table with those new set of records. Those records are from this particular JSON file. This is a JSON file that we modified. If you double click it, open it, you can see that these are the records that we have put in there. So now if we go back again to that list API, and if I just refresh it, I'm getting an output of the records that I populated. These are some of the default records of my favorite shops that I uh, want to keep track of populated. All right. So here, this is what it says. Go into Outputs tab, and you will see this kind of an output. With this, you have completed this step. All right. Now comes the main portion where you are now going to enable DevOps Guru. So this is the place where what you have done is now you have spawned out a CloudFormation stack. So now what we will do is I will just copy this and I will run a CLI. Oops. I will run a CLI which will trigger the CloudFormation stack. This CloudFormation stack is to enable DevOps Guru for the serverless cluster. So if I go back into my CloudFormation stack and I refresh CloudFormation console, I will see one more stack appear out here, and it's already completed. It's because it was very simple, it was very straightforward just to enable it on a particular CloudFormation stack. In this step number, now what it is saying is DevOps Guru is enabled on all these three resources, and now it is doing the baselining of it. This will potentially take up to 2 hours, and now we wait for 2 hours to really continue this particular second part of it. Now, so if you have done all of these steps as a prerequisite, then all of these have been completed and your 2 hours have been passed, and now you can directly join me in in applying the trigger, which is the step number 4. All right. So we have been waiting for baselining of the resources. Once the baselining of the resources is completed, then we can move on to the next step. And this step basically is to apply a trigger. Now, before applying the trigger, what it is saying is this, that the CloudFormation stack that we have here, and we showed here, this has a read capacity of 5 as of today. What we will do is we will reduce that read capacity to 1. Once we do that, reducing the read capacity, that it says that from 5 to 1, you can reduce it. And once you have reduced it, make sure that you have saved this file. So you can click File and then Save. This is how you would save it. And once you have saved it, before that actually, why don't you open up a DynamoDB service, just that you could be sure of DynamoDB being configured correctly. So if you opened it up, you will see one table that we have created, and the total read capacity is 5. Now what we will do is we will run this command, which was suggested in the workshop, that is to update the stack. And we are rerunning this same CloudFormation YAML file, and it will rerun it. And what will happen is in this DynamoDB, which was read capacity of 5, if you refresh it, now it is already 1. So it has played that CloudFormation stack, and it has modified the read capacity. If you see from the CloudFormation perspective, it is still update in progress. So let it go through and let it get completed. But you have completed this portion of it. And now that you have reduced the read capacity, what we will do is we will oversubscribe it. And what I mean by oversubscribing is we will send out a good high rate of traffic. But before that, very important is you want to populate the list API that was provided in your CloudFormation template. So in your CloudFormation template, you had in the outputs this list REST API monitor. This is the one that if you can just copy this and then navigate to the file called as send API request.py. Just open it up. Once it opens up, you will see this URL in here with some generic URL. You can select that and instead of that, paste your URL. Once you paste it out, just say file and save. Now, with this, you are ready to now inject the traffic. So for injecting the traffic, it is as simple as you go here and just run this particular command, Python send API requests. It says preferably open 4 separate tabs for it. So what you can do is in this CloudFormation, you can open up new tabs. So say, for example, you create 4 tabs of it. And what we are doing is we are going to have 4 different streams of traffic that will be sent. So we will say um, C, sorry, CD. We'll go into this particular folder, and then we will run Python send API request.py. And if we just click, if we just run this, you should be able to see this response 200 coming out. So now it is in an infinite loop. It is sending this traffic. What I would suggest is do it for the rest of the other the tabs also. So here you can type Python and send API requests. Similarly, you go in here and cd send API request, and last one, it is cd. So now you're sending a high rate of traffic from 4 different tabs, and you can actually see from your DynamoDB console, if you go into this table and you take a look at the metrics. Now, remember CloudWatch metrics updates in say, for example, some interval of around 5 to 7 minutes. So it is still showing a 5, whereas actually the read capacity has been reduced to 1. So we will soon see that updated. But for now, I think just ignore it for a while. And in a few minutes, you will see that it has gone down and it is at the 1. So that configuration update that happens on this matrix, it takes a little while for it to update. So, and if you still suspect it, say for example, you can just go in here and check whether the read capacity is 1. So it is 1, but we are just waiting for the cloud to get updated soon. And you can see the traffic has been pushed out at a high rate. So once you start this, as mentioned in this particular inject HTTP requests, it takes approximately around 10 minutes for it. So right now we are pumping in high rate of traffic. All right, so as you can see, I have been pumping in traffic. Just for the time's sake, I had it reproduced in a different region. So I don't have to wait for 10 minutes. But if you would have done the prerequisites, you would start seeing some kind of errors that show up out here. As you can see there's some 502 errors that are coming up. So now when you go back into this DynamoDB table, what you would do is navigate to DevOps Guru. You will go in. Sorry, I should not have done this. DevOps Guru. Link in the new tab. All right. So here I'm opening up Amazon DevOps Guru, and as you can see in this particular region, I have an ongoing reactive insight going on. So now I am the operator, and suddenly I have been notified that there is an ongoing reactive insight. And now I want to get to the bottom of it to understand what is going on, right? So Here there is an ongoing reactive insight. As you can see, there is no other um, uh, running graphs that are going on here. So I will do, what I'll do is I'll click on this, and it's saying a particular insight. This is the insight that I was talking about for DevOps Guru. So as you can see, this insight is made up of 4 different sections. Um, the first section is metadata or a summary. Second section is aggregated metrics. Third section is relevant events, and fourth section is recommendations. So let us begin here. This is just a metadata of start time, affected stacks, and it provides you with a status on it. Now, aggregated metrics. As you can see, you are getting the metrics that are showing the anomaly are flagged here and are listed here. So as you can see, you are seeing a matrix of AWS Lambda. You are seeing a matrix of AWS DynamoDB. There is AWS DynamoDB and API Gateway. So this is a classic scenario, right? Me as an operator, I'm monitoring it. I've been notified of insights, and all the 3 resources are complaining about an issue. Now I want to understand what is the symptom, what is the root cause, and I want to find out. So I have a timeline here where it provides me a high level overview of saying that first was the DynamoDB error that started. And soon after that, we started seeing some errors in AWS Lambda. And after that, we started seeing errors in API Gateway. So that kind of gives me, from timeline perspective, maybe something started from here. And these are kind of side effects of it. If you want to take a deeper look into it, I have the graphs for each one of them that I can browse through. And it's very easy for me to look, rather than switching my context and going into CloudWatch metrics and monitoring those. All of those 4 metrics are being tracked here. So I have this aggregated metrics. Now relevant events. This is something which is very interesting. What it does is, based upon this anomaly, it has looked up my CloudTrail logs, and based upon that, it has identified a number of events that have occurred, or operational events that have occurred over the past few days or few hours. And what it sees is these are some of the relevant events that it thinks that could be a potential trigger, and just listing it out. So here, I at some point of time, I had done some change on update stack. There was another update stack event that I had done from deployment perspective. Then there was, at some point of time, I had done some security change, which was put role policy or something like that. So this is very easy for me to kind of look up what are the events that have occurred. Either I have done it, so it's a good reminder. But say, for example, my colleague would have done it, and I don't know about it. I can just go into it to understand what was the change that was made. Goes into CloudTrail logs, CloudTrail management logs. It provides me with the details of what was done, and provides me all information about any change that was made. So maybe this is not the trigger, but at least it's a very nice, handy way of understanding these were some of the operational events that were conducted and may have attributed to this. Now, this is for me to review it. However, as I was mentioning, DevOps Guru uses machine learning models as well as the correlation of the events. And based upon that, it generates these recommendations. And as you can see in the recommendations, it has come up with numerous recommendations. And it's giving you a good list of links to refer to. The first one is rollback Amazon DynamoDB table update. And that is exactly our root cause. It is saying that it is doing it because of, based upon this metric, as well as update table operation that you carried out during the update stack. So it has noted that down, and it has pretty much detected if you roll back this table update, you would potentially come back to normal. And this is exactly what in DynamoDB table, if you see from the metric perspective, we are actually exceeding this read capacity of 1. And it is, and throttling is happening, but we are oversubscribing. And because DynamoDB is oversubscribed, it is not able to fulfill requests that are coming from Lambda due to this throttling of read requests, due to which Lambda is seeing errors as well as API gateway is also seeing errors. So all of those are side effects, but the main cause is DynamoDB. The reduction of um, read capacity of DynamoDB. So this is where it helps to identify exactly where the issue is. And you, of course, have a lot of recommendations also provided that in case if it is not, these are some of the links that you can look into. Now, of course, you can go into settings, and what I would suggest is if you would want to give it a try, if you have certain CloudFormation stacks that are configured in your organization and you want to see what is happening, you can go into this option and you can select more CloudFormation stacks that you want to monitor. You can do that. Or if you select analyze all AWS resources in the current AWS account in this region, then it will monitor all resources. So even if new resources are created, you don't have to go manually to select that particular CloudFormation stack. It just is directly involved. It just directly counts that. So in a way, this helps you to monitor the resources on an ongoing basis, and it will provide you with recommendations, which are prescribed recommendations. This is the place where you configure the SNS notification. This is the place where you can provide the SNS topic name, where you want to send your SNS notification when an insight is generated. And of course, the last part is the systems manager integration. So if you, as soon as you just click this one button, by clicking this enable button, what it does is now whenever a new insight is generated, it will create an ops item in the ops center. So it is as simple as that. So you don't have to take, you don't have to go through any configuration. Just clicking this is now going to create a ticket in the ops center, and you can track it. So these are the main functionalities of DevOps Guru from the dashboard perspective. And now if you see from here, as we were mentioning, this is an ongoing reactive insights. There is an ongoing proactive insights also. So that is the main set of workshop that you can carry out to see the insights happening. In fact, actually, if you go further into this particular workshop, and I'll just open up the link here just so that we can easily refer to it. We had injected the traffic here, and we waited, and we saw these DevOps Guru insights generated, and we went through it, and it provides you with all the details about how to interpret these recommendations and the graph anomalies that we already also looked at it. Then there is a section of injecting another failure. This is the place where it is very straightforward, where what you do is first you will have to stop your traffic. So this traffic which is going on in an infinite loop, you can just stop it. Please make sure that eventually you do stop it, because you don't want that continuous traffic to go through. So once you have stopped it, now you have to wait until this ongoing reactive insight goes to 0. As of now, it is showing 1, and this takes approximately around 8 to 9 minutes for it to detect that the reactive insight is completely gone. And the main reason is because generation of the insight, or even going away of insight, is very conservative. And the reason is because we want to avoid false positives. We want to ensure that we provide whatever insight is generated, we generate it after confirming for sufficient amount of time. So generation of insight also, after applying the triggers, it will take around 8 to 9 minutes for it to show up. And once you remove the trigger, it will take a few minutes for it to go to 0. So as of now, it will continue to show the reactive insights, even though I've stopped it. And only after it goes away, then you can move to the next step. And in this next step, is very straightforward. What it says is, um, uh, in this particular, open up the Lambda function. So there is a Lambda function that is created. Um, I will just open up the Lambda function, and in here, I might not be able to show it here by running it because my ongoing insight is still going on. But very straightforward that you will be able to identify scan function monitor open. So this is function name you identify, which is meant here. This is the function. So once you go into that function, you select that function, go into the configuration part of it. So there is a configuration tab, and after this configuration tab, click the permissions. So now in this permissions, it will provide you with the permissions that have been configured. And in here, it is giving a list of policy documents. Click on policy statements and click on this view policy document. So now once you click on this policy document, you will see this. And this is what is explained in here, that you will see these kind of output from the permissions perspective. And what you can do is as simple as just identify the source ARA, the AWS source ARA. Select the ones with the prod. So this is the test invoke stage. This is also the test invoke stage. Go to the prod. So this is the prod, and this is the prod. So we got both of them. Okay. So now here you have copied the SID in here, and if you go back into this, what it is saying is copy this particular line, and just insert the SID in there. So if you have copied this particular line, the SID ending with value prod star, you can copy it into there. And once you do that, you can run that command from here. So you can just run that command, as simple as that. And once you have done that, what happens is if you go into this particular line would have gotten removed. Similarly, remove this line also. And once you remove Alright, so once you identified that and you paste it out here. So now from configuration permissions perspective, if you go back into view policy document, what you will see is only two different entries in this because the two entries have been removed, and both of these two entries are test related. So prod related are over. So now what will happen is when you inject the same command which you were doing it earlier, Python send API requests, it will continuously fail. So now you are injecting a different type of an error, which is creating 500 error, the internal server error. And after around 10 minutes or so, it will show up on the DevOps Guru dashboard as a new insight. And that insight will be as shown in this particular diagram. So here it will show you this kind of an insight saying that you are seeing a lot of 5xx errors. And because you have enabled ops item here, it will create an ops item, and you can click here and you can check out how the ops item is. So that is pretty much it from the workshop perspective. What we wanted to do is basically create these various insights, artificially reproduce these issues, and see how these insights show up. And we as an operator, how the insights guide you to exactly go to the root cause and really fix the issue. Don't forget to clean up your account before you end the workshop. And of course, if you have any questions or so, we'll be opening up for the Q&A. So I hope that this workshop was very useful for you. And Give it a try. Enable DevOps Guru in your account, and once you enable it, you would be able to uncover a number of uh, various resource behaviors in the form of an insight that could be happening, and you may not have noticed it. But it'll be interesting to see how these insights show up. We'll be happy to work with you if you have any further questions. With that, we come to the end of the workshop. Thank you very much.